Hello, I'm Julie Malcolm, and this is my story concerning the Ministry of Education Jamaica and my attempts to receive my salaries that have been owing to me for the better part of 20 years. I initially joined the Ministry of Education as a classroom teacher in the 2000-2001 academic year, and my final year of appointment was 2020 to 2021. Now, when you are a classroom teacher in Jamaica, there are three main ways to increase your salaries. You may upgrade your training, you may serve additional years, or you may be appointed to a post of special responsibility. The first two are primarily up to the teacher. You determine if you go back for training, you determine if you get up and report to work on every given day of the year. And so I sought to increase my salaries via the two means that I just mentioned. Before entering the service, I had attended the Jamaica University College. I completed a 3-year diploma in teaching. After that, I completed a 3-year Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of the West Indies, and following that, a Master of Arts degree at the same facility. Now, those three qualifications, when the Ministry of Education financial guidelines are applied accurately, would have allowed for an increase in my salary each and every time. In terms of my years of experience, the ministry allows a teacher automatic increments. Once you have served about 12 months or so, you receive a service increment. So your salary would automatically increase because of the service that you would have given to the system. It's not a lot, but it is something. So let's calculate my salary. Now, the salary scale is a simple document that has columns with different salary amounts on it, going from left to right. And for every year that you serve, you move incrementally along that scale. If you have additional qualifications, you would move to another scale or continue along the same scale, depending on which scale you are on. So I started on the diploma salary scale, and I would have remained on that scale from 2001 to 2007. Following that, having received my first degree between the 2007-2008 academic year, I would have transitioned to the degree scale, or what the ministry called the trained graduate scale. Now, the trained graduate scale would have started at point 1, but the degree that I had, the quality of the degree indicated to the ministry that they needed to move me further along the scale, as the ministry allows for teachers who have been awarded an honors degree to jump an additional 2 increments. So instead of starting the trained graduate scale at point 1, I should have started at point 3. This did not happen. It did not happen. And of course, I had visited then Region 6 and had the discussions. However, when the salaries came down, the salaries were not in keeping with the discussions that we had had. Following that, I would have completed my master's degree, and the increments for, or the increases for master's degrees are calculated slightly differently. The guidelines for calculating the increments for the master's degree are available in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and the JTA agreement for compensation packages for teachers. And it's available by virtue of the Access to Information Act. It is available to any Jamaican. You can apply for it, or you can get it from a public school principal or teacher or any concerned Jamaican who would have it in his or her possession. Let us now look at 2010. I noted that in 2010, the Ministry of Education had me at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale. For 2015 to 2016, I was at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale. In 2020 and 2021, I was still at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale. And if that was not bad enough, I was not even paid in the correct year. In 2010, going into 2011, my salary reflected that of the 5th point of the trained graduate scale in 2008. In 2015-2016, my salary was at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale in 2009. And then for 2020-2021, even after having submitted all of those miscalculations and underpayments to my new region, Region 7, to the regional director, to the personnel team, I was still at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale. Now, before I even thought for a first day, I reached out to Region 7 and I said, this is the situation. I've been trying to fight it for years. Nobody's giving me the time of day. Please do not continue doing this now that I've chosen to resume in Clarendon. Here is the evidence of the underpayment. Here's my complete service history. Here are the appointment forms. Here are the agreements between JTA and the Ministry of Finance. This is where I should have been. This is what they decided to pay me. Can we please move forward and not repeat the mistakes of the past? To that, Miss Pauline Jackson, the personnel officer in charge of me because I taught at Denby High School, a school that was within the cluster of schools that she served, she slammed a door in my face at Region 7. Literally walked away while I was speaking with her, looked at me dead in the eye, closed the door behind her, and walked away. Miss Kershaw Bell, Miss Carol Watson, in an online Zoom call, listened to me, made promises to remedy the situation. Those promises are unfulfilled. This is January 2022. Mr. Barrington Richardson took the phone calls, took the WhatsApp messages, took the emails, the email threads, noted the number of visits I made to the regional office in Maypen, Clarendon, and yet chose on 2 separate occasions to still produce appointment letters that placed me at the 5th point of the trained graduate scale. Now, if you know that I'm being underpaid and you have all the evidence in the world, because the evidence I submitted to him were originally had from the Ministry of Education. They were documents created within the Ministry of Education. I received my original copies from them. I presented these documents to Mr. Barrington Richardson, Regional Director for Region 7 within the Ministry of Education. He took them, he considered them, then he continued to perpetuate the same robbery of my salaries that had been going on since 2000-2001. And that leads me to understand that this is not a one-man job. The Ministry of Education is populated by members, a network of members with sticky fingers who perpetuate financial crimes. Whether directly or indirectly, the entire Ministry of Education is aware of what I have been experiencing for years. Minister Favour Williams, CEO Troop, former permanent secretary, Dr. Grace McLean, the regional directors, the schools in which I have taught, they are aware, and it has led me to believe that I am not the only teacher who continues to experience this. You see, the Ministry of Education is a well-oiled machinery. In order for something like this to happen, it means that someone made an error or someone made a deliberate mistake. And that mistake kept being sanctioned year in and year out. Because every time I move from one school to another, every time I submit a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree, every time I would have completed 12 months of service within the classroom, it would require the Ministry of Education to recalculate my salary to ensure that it reflects my years of experience, my post of special responsibility, if any, and my qualifications. This did not happen. This has not happened. For this act to be perpetuated, given the checks and balances within the Ministry of Education, it speaks to deliberate actions by a network of members with sticky fingers. Now, provided that I have exhausted all avenues through which to get my salaries from the Ministry of Education, there's only one option left. And it may be lengthy, it may be challenging, but if you have served with me on any teaching staff, you know I'm determined, you know I'm not afraid of hard work. I know I deserve my money. You know that when it comes to my job, I do not play. I turn up for my classes. I complete my lesson plans. I serve my students. Sometimes at 7 p.m. I'm at the school gate just going home. After having served for free between dismissal and 7 p.m. My weekends were spent online and face-to-face, assisting students to do well, because to me that is my contribution to the crime problem. Even if you choose to become a criminal after I have taught you, that is on you, because you would have now had other options based on the education that you would have received. Ministry of Education, Jamaica, for your actions in perpetuating financial crimes against me, you shall pay by any means necessary. I am Julie Malcolm, and this is my story.